All right. Welcome to Discover Your Pinewoods Archives. And I'm Chris Jacobs, Executive Director of Pinewoods. And I am going to introduce everyone else in just a moment. But I did promise a quick Blizzard update of everything that is happening here at camp. So let me just quickly just give you a quick snapshot. We have had an incredible couple of days, lots of wind, lots of snowdrifts. We have a little over 2 feet of snow. We lost power Sunday night. I don't even know what day it is. I think it's Tuesday. We lost Sunday or Monday early morning, like around 4 o'clock. We lost power. We are not expecting it back for probably another 3 to 5 days. So we had lots of wind damage, trees down, and but it is beautiful. And just a quick couple of photos here. Um, Greeting shed on Monday, halfway through the day. The next picture is of the moon and the stars after the storm was starting to calm down. This next picture, we cleared part of West Long Pond Road today. And then we plowed to the end of West Long Pond Road where it meets Halfway Pond near the church. And then this is a picture of the dining hall from today as well. We have lots of tree damage, lots of just limbs everywhere. We are still in the process of assessing the damage. It's really slow going, and our priority was to open up the roads today. We do have a tree down on the power lines between the Hunston House parking lot and to Pine Cones. So in between there, which means there is no power to Pine Cones, to Amsterdam, which is where our water treatment area is, and then also to our well pump. So thankfully, we do have a generator for the well system. But one of the challenges is that we probably will not be able to get that line repaired for weeks, just because we are last priority on Eversource's list. So hopefully we will not run out of propane. We're running off a generator, but it is beautiful. Today I saw an otter on Round Pond fishing and poking up through the snow. It was really just magical. So we'll have more pictures to come, but that's just a quick update on the storm. With that, we're going to turn it over to Discover Your Pinewoods Archives. Just a couple of reminders that we're asking that you hold your questions till the end. There'll be an opportunity for Q&A, and then there'll be some breakout groups. So for you to ask even more detailed and specific questions about the program. So I am going to stop sharing my screen. And again, I'm going to introduce those who are presenting. We have Beth Regan. Beth is not presenting. Beth is tech and running all the chat function and adding links in there. So thank you, Beth. We have Joe Rasi, Susan Creighton, Fiona Rogers, and Liv Jacobs. They are part of the Centennial Archival team, and they will be presenting. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Joe.
Thank you so much, Chris. How's that screen look? Somebody thumbs up me if we got it. All right.
Great.
Welcome to the Zoom Winter Series. Today we are discovering, well, you are discovering your Pinewoods archive and going to learn about how you can become a part of that. Just quickly talking about the team that was on the ground at Pinewoods over the summer, as well as some of the presenters for today. So this is a put the face with the name kind of thing in case you don't know everybody. So you just met Susan and Fiona and Liv and myself. Also working all summer with us were Emily Moore, Pat McPherson, and Mary Wesley. And on the archives committee are Harris Laparoff and Leah Gordon. And all of those folks are going to be continuing to work on this project, continuing to process the stuff and keep things going in the years to come. And so I'm going to turn it over now to Susan Creighton, who's going to bring the first part of today's program, collecting photos. Thanks, Susan.
All right. Hi. It's so nice to see so many friends here tonight. Thanks for coming. So we're going to talk about 3 of the different centennial activities that PCI Archives Committee took on this summer. And Joe, if you'll click next, I'm going to talk first about collecting photos for the archives. Okay. Okay, next. So I don't know if everyone knows this, but there is actually a formal archival collection of Pinewoods Camp that lives at the archives at the University of New Hampshire. So many universities will have an archive, and because everybody can't collect everything that there is in the world, universities will choose what's called a collecting area, a place where they will focus their collecting efforts. And UNH, for various reasons, has chosen to focus on traditional music and dance. So they have a number of collections that fall under that umbrella. A number of their collections are focused around specific people, and I've given you just a selection of names here. Okay, next. Joe, next, thank you. And they also have archival collections for different organizations, and you'll see Pinewoods Camp is one of them. This is not an exhaustive list of all the organizations. I thought I would just give you kind of a quick look at some of the organizations, and we'll talk about how you can go online onto UNH's archives and explore a little more on your own. Okay, next. So if you were to get into University of New Hampshire's archival collection, you would at some point see these short descriptions of different collections they have, and you would see the Pinewoods Camp collection. And you'll see it's dated 1907 to 2008. So why does it stop at 2008? Well, because when the collection was established, that was the latest material they had. Little bit about archives. Typically, when an archival collection is given to a university, that's it. It's a completed project. It's done. You don't add more material to it after it's been donated to the archives. However, PCI board has been working with UNH to develop a system where we can continue to add material to the collection, and particularly around PCI's 100th anniversary, which we just had. So if you were then to click on the link there that says Pinewoods Camp Collection, next, you would see a little bit more information. You would get a description of Pinewoods Camp. What is this archival collection about? You would then get a description of what kinds of things are in the collection. You would get a brief description of how it's organized. And eventually, if you scroll down, you can see a list of all of the different folders of material that are in there. Okay, next. So, okay, can you hit the first click there, Joe? So you'll see that the collection for Pinewoods is divided up into what's 3 different series, or what they're called. That's kind of a category of information. The first one is correspondence that's about the physical history of camp and the lands. The second one is all about photographs, audio, and memorabilia. And the third one is more administrative. Okay, Joe, click again. And if you click on each of those links, you get a short little description of what's in that category of material. And click again. And then you start to get a list of the titles of the folders. Now, unfortunately, that's as far as you can drill down online. UNH, it's beyond the scope of what UNH can do to go into those folders and digitize every single piece of paper and every single photo that's in there. To see the material that's here, you would actually have to go visit UNH You can make an appointment in the archives, tell them what you're coming to see, and that gives them time to collect all the material there on site and make sure it's there for you to look at. Okay, Joe, next. So there is among the various things that are in the Pinewoods collection, there's an amazing photo collection. And I thought I would just show you a couple examples of some of the great photos that are in there. The photo collection spans almost 100 years. It goes from 1910 to 2006. So this particular photo is from an early CDSS week when they just had dance weeks. And one of the features of those dance weeks were these demonstration dances that were done for everyone. And I believe this is an English dance getting demonstrated.
Are we good?
Yes, thank you. Okay. For those people that might know him, the gentleman in the middle facing us is Arthur Cornelius. Okay, can you click to the next one? This photo is from 1968. So when you're at camp and you're walking from Pine Cones up to the dining hall, you pass Newbigin 2. Well, this is Newbigin 1, which doesn't exist anymore, but people that know more than me could tell us where this existed at camp, but this is the first Newbigin dance hall. This is from 1968. Okay, Joe, can you click? From 1989, here's an Abbott's Bromley practice in Hands Across with their backs to us. I believe we have Rick Moore, John Ridgway, and we think Jim Blackwell. Facing us, we're not sure who the little young person is, but that's Steve Howe in the middle and Paul McGuire on the far right. Okay, Joe, thanks. Click. And from 1988 Family Week, this is Steve Howe and Meg Ryan. I'm not sure if they were married yet, but if they weren't, it was pretty close. So there's a great many photos. Okay, Joe, thanks. So we are interested in adding to this collection, and we're interested in collecting photos from campers. And in order for us to keep this manageable enough for ourselves, we're asking you to choose your top 3 of what we're calling snapshots in time. So if you'd like to donate photos to us, you have to boil it down to just 3 that you like, and you're going to tell us about what's in them and why you selected those as your top 3 of Pinewoods. Okay, click. So currently, if you go onto the Pinewoods website, you'll see a Centennial 2025 link, and there's a drop-down menu. And if you look down that drop-down menu, about third from the bottom, you'll see Snapshots in Time Archival Project. Today, we're also going to talk about the StoryCorps project. You'll see the link just underneath that. And just 2 down from the top, you'll also see the Creativity Archive project. We're going to talk about those as well, but those are all under that Centennial 2025 drop-down menu. Okay, click. And what you will get is a little Google form with a couple of questions for you to answer about the photos that you're submitting, and then a little button that you can click where you can upload the file for your photo. Joe, can you click one more time? So this is the way you can submit digital photos to us. If you actually have some physical photos that are not digitized that you want to submit to us, that happens a different way. In that case, we'll ask you to email us at archives@pinewoods.org, and then we'll be in touch with you to figure out how to get your photos from you. Okay, click. Just wanted to show you a couple of things that have been donated this summer. Suzanne Rozak sent in this photo of members of the Copper family from England. This is an amazing family that's been singing for generations, and they came to Pinewoods, and this is 4 of them sitting on the Pine Cones porch singing. Okay, thanks. Next. This is one of my favorite ones. I submitted this one. That is me at the piano. I'm on staff for first weekend, and that is my younger kid, Alex, in the backpack, 9 months old. Alex would sit in the backpack, or rather stand, and would bounce on my back while I was playing piano. So early dancing. That's Vince O'Donnell on the left playing fiddle, and the person's knee that you can see is Bill Smith, who is no longer with us, sadly, husband of Sarah Gregory Smith. Okay, click. And one more, this is one Joe submitted. This is Harper. This is Ellen Conant's daughter, who is mid-air in the middle of the famous Family Week pond toss, which I'm told is very popular and people line up to be tossed into the pond. So in each of these cases, these are a particular special memory of Pinewoods, and we're looking for photos that somehow speak to you about why Pinewoods is so special to you. Okay, click. So, so we're interested in gathering your photos. We're now also going to switch and talk about recordings, and Joe's going to talk for a moment about StoryCorps project, but I just wanted to say one thing. We ran a special session at camp this summer called Find Companions that was a special one-time centennial session. And at that, we had a couple of what we called memory roundtable discussions. Each of those sessions had 60 to 80 people in them, and we recorded those conversations. It was people, excuse me, sharing memories of very early days at camp. It was just an amazing session, and we're going to find some way to get those files out where people can hear them. But let's hear about StoryCorps project. That's also another exciting effort, so I'm going to turn that over to Joe.
Thank you, Susan. And everybody, I'm very excited to tell you about this StoryCorps project. If anybody hasn't heard about StoryCorps before, it's a nonprofit. It was founded in 2003. They record, preserve, and share stories of everyday people. And the mission is really fostering humanity and connection. And you'll hear a lot more of that as we talk about how we're doing it. The stories for StoryCorps are archived at the Library of Congress, and they share them often on NPR, so that may be a place you've encountered them before. And our StoryCorps version is going to be an opportunity for you to submit your own stories. You can also record stories of others in our community, and you can hear stories across camp weeks. So no matter what week you're going to, you can hear from other weeks that you've maybe never been to, and learn a little bit more about what else goes on at camp. So this is an archival project, but it's also a community building project and more, and we'll come back to that. Why do we share our stories? We are preserving the voices, memories, and perspectives of people who love Pinewoods. We're hearing from and learning from family members, friends, and the people with whom we share the space. And we are capturing your unique history and your perspective in your own words. And no one else has experienced camp the way you have, so everybody has a very unique story. And in the sense of oral history in an archive adds another layer, a deeper layer to some of the other items that have been collected. It's very emotional generally to be able to hear people's voices, and so oral history is a very important part of archiving. This summer, while we were on the ground all summer at Pinewoods, two comments we heard a lot were, "I don't really have a story," or "Does my story really matter?" And we were able to guide across the summer people to both find their story and also see the value in their story. And so for anybody here today who hasn't recorded, we're hoping that we're going to be able to do that for you here. This is a selection of people that I was able to record this summer, just some of them. We were really doing a lot of recordings this summer. This was folks I knew and also folks I'd never even met before. And the joy of getting to know these folks, hear their stories that ranged from a dramatic medical incident at camp, from also reminiscences of shifting from being camp kids to raising their own camp kids. It was all completely amazing. So it is, in fact, archival. We can store all of this and have it for posterity. It's also a community building project, but it also has another layer, which is almost a community service project. People love to be seen and heard and to feel connected to a community. And we are in tough global times. And people may feel lonely or despondent. People may not be able to get to camp. Folks might be aging out of camp. But this is a way where you personally can reach out to someone and talk about camp, connect with them, make them feel seen and heard, and maybe bring a bit of joy into their lives, all from your chair, which is a pretty awesome thing. This is our Pinewoods page on the StoryCorps site. So our stories are available here. You can click on them here and listen to them. They're also available through the Library of Congress. And we are also going to be collecting written stories if people prefer to write stories. And you can email us at an email, archives@pinewoods.org. And that email is in the chat. It'll also be on the last screen of the presentation today. So here's a question we also got a lot during the summer: is the technology complicated? And I will start by saying that we've come a long way, baby. So this is what folks had to drag out into the fields back in the late 1800s in order to record people. This equipment was heavy. This is not a particularly stable medium. Stuff like this had to be recopied over onto cassette tapes in order to make it more stable. So we don't have to do that. This is actually the trunk of Alan Lomax and John Lomax's car. Just the batteries alone for this equipment were 75 pounds each, never mind all the weight of the actual equipment. About 1930s when they were recording. And then we moved to what now looks much smaller and easier compared to that, the reel-to-reel, which was also heavy and also not a stable format. And here are the aforementioned cassette tapes that the wax cylinders were digitized to. Lightweight, cheap, easy to produce, a complete wreck. Who remembers all of those things on spooling in your thing and it drove you crazy? But funnily enough, then cassette tapes are now being digitized because they're also not stable. So some of these things have been transitioned multiple times. And here we are on the handy dandy mini computer that most of us carry in our very own pocket. And this is the tool for recording now. Not only is it light and not only is it efficient, it's also immediately digitized. So it comes out in digital format, which makes it currently a very stable format. On the bottom right, you might see the little StoryCorps app poking up over there, and we're going to be talking about that in just a sec. When you do a StoryCorps story, you are basically creating a self-archiving story. We will record the story. It's immediately coming out in digital format. And on your app or on your computer, you would be adding the name, the title, tags. So if you can look at these here on the screen, these two stories were submitted by Fiona Rogers. The title is what she's written right under it. So here's a great title: The Gang That Made the Dry Stone Wall During Folk Music Week, and Stories of Gene Ritchie and Stan Hugel. So there's a great title. And then underneath that is a description where you can get a little more into either who recorded or what you were talking about. And then the last thing are tags, where you can actually take notes while you're talking and put those into the system, and it will turn them into tags, which means people can search. For example, if you look at this one, Gene Ritchie, sea shanties, traditional music, and either researchers or just regular old folk looking for something they want to listen to that is related to what they are interested in, they can find them very easily. If you look over on the right, you see a questions list. So this is a list of questions that we made that you can use to sort of get started. And we're going to give more instructions on navigating the website and the app and the other ways of recording, all in breakout rooms later. But here's the question list. And one thing that's important about this question list is that you don't have to use it. So we made these questions because they're examples of things you could talk about. You might come up with your own questions. What happened the most over the summer was that we do recommend you start with the first one. What are your names? Where are you recording from? What is the date? And how is it that you're here together today? So generally, when we got to the how is it that you're here together today, no one ever looked at their questions after that, because that was the start point of a conversation that just naturally, organically evolved. And people forgot they were doing an interview or a recording. They just started talking about their experiences and or the things they were curious about each other. And this is, once you download the app, this is what the first screens would look like as you're getting ready to interview. It really walks you through it very easily. You're going to get started. What would you like to do? Prepare my interview. Do you want to take a look at some questions? If you pick questions using the app, they can actually pop up during your interview, which is really handy if you do want a little prompt. On the third screen, you're going to learn what you need to do in the room to make the space ready and all of the other things you might want to be thinking about. And then your little button, yes, let's record now. Once you do that, you go to a screen where you actually click to start the recording. You have 45 minutes. After that, the recording will turn off. And if you want to, you can hit pause while you're recording. We have recommended that you try not to hit pause because some of the ebbs and flows of a natural conversation are actually totally fascinating. But if you're coughing, you're sneezing, you need to drink a water, somebody's getting really emotional and wants it off, you have that option. So You may be wondering, how do I record my friend who can't come to Pinewoods anymore when I'm all the way over here on the East Coast and they are all the way over there on the West Coast? And StoryCorps has thought of that too. So there is another program here called StoryCorps Connect. It's kind of like a Zoom. You would get into it, you would see the person that you're interviewing, you would have the option to start and stop your recording when you want to. You can see the person that you're talking to, and you do the same thing you would do as if you were using your phone sitting on the table between the two of you in person. You might have noticed on the recordings that each one of them came with a cute little picture, so the StoryCorps app tells you to take the picture before you part away from your person. Here in this app, I think Fiona would agree with me. For whatever reason, the StoryCorps app doesn't tell you when they're taking the picture here in StoryCorps Connect. So as far as I can tell, they take it when you're making the weirdest possible face. So you guaranteed to look weird, but even the weird looking photos are so warm and charming. So it's a lovely, lovely way to be able to be doing this with folks from far away. Okay, a little bit of do's and a couple don'ts. So think of it as sitting across a meal table from someone. Be relaxed, chatty, be a good listener. We say take turns. If you're doing a thing where you're having a conversation, take turns. You ask a question, then the person asks it back of you. But if you're doing a straight up interview where you're just asking questions of someone, then obviously the taking turns doesn't apply. Have fun because it's actually a total blast. Don't overplan. That's kind of like don't think too much about the questions. But the bottom two are actually important. Don't share gossip. So you're sharing your own story, not someone else's. Try to keep that in mind. And then more specifically, don't share stories that are potentially, we use the word outing or embarrassing to others. And the example we gave all summer was you don't want to be telling about the time you were running down the path and you saw so-and-so and so-and-so kissing and you didn't even know they were together, because that is like really pretty much not something we want to have on record if they don't want that on record. You do have the option of not posting your story when you're done if it doesn't feel like something you want to post. And we do have the option of taking one down if something comes up, but we really love not to ever have to do that. So we do appreciate your thoughts on that. So we're going to do a couple quick just showcases of a little bit about what we're talking about. So this is the very first story we recorded. I actually did it the summer before our centennial summer. It was the pilot story just to test and make sure things were working as we had hoped that they would. This is Kathy Bullock. She was at Pinewoods for Harmony Week. And in this sound clip, she is telling me when the last time it was that she had been to Pinewoods.
Been absolutely wonderful. To come back again to Pinewoods.
That's so lovely. So you say come back again to Pinewoods because this is not your first time here, is that right?
It is not. And I was trying to figure out when did I first come. And I've just found out that it was 1999, 25 years ago.
Which is crazy.
What?
Right? When we were talking about it maybe being 2006. It was like, yeah, it couldn't have been that long ago. And in fact, it was longer ago.
It was longer than that. That was my first time, and it was a pivotal time in my whole life. It opened up a whole new world.
Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Liv Jacobs, who is going to share an interview that she worked on. Thanks, Liv.
Hi, great to be here. I'm going to just run a couple of clips from this story between Joe and Sarah, who are a couple. And Joe had got in touch with Max and Julie ahead of camp and commissioned them to write a waltz for Sarah for her birthday that was played during the week. So if I could just do one clip right after the other and get a little listen to those.
So, Joe, we've been married nearly 30 years now?
30 years.
Yeah. And although there's a lot of things about us that are the same, there's one big difference, which is that you like to be the center of attention and have lots of people and lots of hoo-ha, and I hate being the center of attention. So when you asked me for my birthday, did I want everybody to sing and lots of cake and gifts here at Pinewoods Camp? I was like, oh, no.
So I'm sure you want to hear the entire rest of the waltz, and I think the only place you can do that right now is on StoryCorps. So that alone is a great reason to visit the page. I wanted to note here that for the most part, the pattern of the interviews has been that people have really beautiful, touching, and positive moments that they are excited to share. I'm sure that's what floats to the top right away for most of us when we think about Pinewoods, but that's not always the case. Sometimes folks have experiences that reflect some of the more complex and difficult parts of being in a community that's this close knit and just has this much duration. So I want to encourage you in these cases to think like a time traveler, because what we're doing here is creating an archive that we hope will be used in retrospect, right? So this is information for us to look back on and consider the history of the community and kind of decide who we want to be moving forward. So maybe relax a little bit into some discomfort if that's what comes up, and just know that it's all part of the process as long as we're being respectful. And I'm happy to take any questions about that or anything else about the interview process or the Pinewoods Centennial StoryCorps. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Liv. And now we're going to hear from Fiona Rogers.
Hi, everybody. Great to be here. Thank you so much for saying that, Liv. That's a great point. I also had the pleasure of doing a lot of StoryCorps interviews this summer and connecting with a bunch of different people, some of whom I knew very well and some whom I never met before, and getting a great sense of the breadth of different experiences at Pinewoods. And it was an incredibly meaningful experience for me. I've only been coming to Pinewoods for a few years, and it provided me with a huge amount of sort of historical context and also contemporary context. I grew up in a tight-knit folk community in Western Massachusetts and didn't really know anything about Pinewoods. But in doing this project, I've come to realize how important Pinewoods has been for not just the Eastern Mass folk community and the dancing that gets done in local dances, but all across North America and honestly, across the pond as well. The traditions that we do are hugely informed by a few key people who came over from the British Isles in the 70s. So I grew up doing contra and Morris and rapper. And in doing these StoryCorps interviews, talking to Jim Morrison and Tom Criscoll, realized, and many others, realized how there are a number of very important moments in the landscape of North American folk dancing that were deeply connected to Pinewoods, and how people, teachers came to Pinewoods, and from there, Pinewoods and other CDSS, I should say, oriented sessions, Berea and Country Dance School, and have hugely informed the style of rapper dancing that we do and which traditions of Morris we do and how do we do contra dancing. And I had no idea, never even really hearing much about Pinewoods in my isolated upbringing in the folk community, how important Pinewoods was to all of that. So names like Peter Brown and Dee Brown and Tony Barron and Gene Ritchie and Stan Hugel and all of these really important, really impactful people who have shaped what my generation has grown up doing, came through Pinewoods and how important that was. So that was a great eye-opening experience to have kind of over and over as a theme through many of these interviews. And as Liv was just saying, it's been great to have a contemporary snapshot of what Pinewoods is, to be looked back on from future generations, to have kind of a contemporary picture of what things were. And I chatted with and recorded StoryCorps with a number of people who were newer to camp, who had just started coming in the past decade or the past couple years or even this summer, to get a great, get conversations about what their experiences are, but also had a number of amazing interviews from folks who'd been coming for 40 or 50 years to camp, from some third generation, even fourth generation families who've been coming to camp for, they're, bringing their kids year after year after year. And through that got a great sense of perspective of how camp has shifted over time, what it used to be like, getting to imagine like the gender segregation that used to be, hearing about men's shore and women's hill, and just imagining how different life was when sort of in my parents' generation and previous generations, and hearing about important folks who shaped the culture of camp, hearing about May Gadd and all of her influence, and hearing about previous camp directors, Gerda Conant, um, and just getting this great sense of how camp has shifted over time and what it was like to be here in a different era, and all the people who have been so instrumental in making it what it is. And I had the pleasure of having conversations one-on-one with many of those folks, like Deborah Criscoll, who designed a lot of the buildings at camp, who is responsible for kind of the landscape of the area around the program center and Ampleforth and the camp house and the Pinewoods offices and the square area, and how she shaped all of that through her vision. And talking to folks like Michael Shoemaker, who was a cook in the Pinewoods kitchen. And many of the recipes that we think of as being so quintessentially Pinewoods are his recipes, and his name is in the recipe book, but we might not ever get to see that. So getting that amazing sense of how things came to be the way that they are and what they were like before. And another big part of that, I think, is gender and Pinewoods' role in shaping the attitude and kind of the standard of gender inclusive calling and inclusion, and how we as a community approach gender as a topic that has really evolved over time, and how Pinewoods has been a trailblazer in many ways for setting precedents about how we can navigate that as a community and be really welcoming. There's a great interview I encourage folks to listen to with Aaron Marcus on the StoryCorps, talking about their personal perspective and some broader context of how influential Pinewoods has been to other local dance communities, and setting up how folks do stuff all across the country, which is really meaningful. And then I think I'd leave it with hearing over and over again. I'm someone who I think would be hesitant to use the word magic, but it's so apt. It comes up over and over again. People talk about the magic of Pinewoods and how special it is, and what a life-changing experience it is to come to Pinewoods for the first time. I forgot to mention up on the screen in the upper left, we have Tom Criscoll and Jim Morrison, who I mentioned back at the beginning as being folks who talked a lot about that context of how the scene of folk dance and music in North America has been shaped by those two figures and Pinewoods. They're on the Cotty House porch there, where a lot of wild parties happened. Below them is Tom Yarnall, who has a great interview on there about how Pinewoods changed how he interacted with community building in his own life, and coming to camp as a young adult, how that changed the trajectory of where he chose to take his career, and how he chose to build relationships with people after seeing kind of what was possible at camp, and a standard of community that so many of us, I think, in life are lacking, that connection and music and kind of devotion to one another and to a community and a space. In the upper right, we have Catherine Giacoletti and Elena Giacoletti. Catherine is president of the board currently. Elena has been on crew, her daughter, for several years now. That was another fabulous interview. And I've heard from folks outside of the Pinewoods community who've never heard of Pinewoods that they found that interview on the StoryCorps website, which was very meaningful. And then there on the bottom right, we have Sam Conant and Lane, who were married in a couple years ago, I want to say 2023 or so, that's Hands Across right there. It was a beautiful wedding, and kind of ties it all together with my like noticing this theme that's gone through all of these interviews pretty much, is that Pinewoods has been a central part of people's lives and has shaped the way that they think about community, they think about connecting with other people, and so many people have met their spouses at camp, Sam and Lane included, and they also had the great privilege of getting married at camp, which is beautiful, and how many multi-generational families keep coming back and bringing their children, I think are great examples of how special and meaningful Pinewoods is. So I encourage, along with Susan and Joe and Liv, everyone to make a recording, find someone to chat with. It doesn't have to be groundbreaking or earth-shattering. All of these together have really helped me understand Pinewoods in a much deeper and profound way. And I think will be great moving forward for people to look back on and get a sense of like what it was like for us and what it has been like in the past, so we can save that and know what we're working with here.
Thank you so much, Fiona. So big thanks to Fiona and to Liv. They both did interviews during the summer, many. And there was a really incredible balance between people talking about Pinewoods history or the way Pinewoods affected other things, their own personal history, their own experiences within that history, or just their own more recent history at camp. So including people who were in fact new to camp and telling stories about their own experiences at camp over 1 or 2 years. So bring your stories. Please join us. Here are some things that you can do. You can think of your potential story partners. You can connect with a partner for an in-person interview. You can record a partner remotely. You can think ahead of who you might record while you are at camp this coming summer on your handy dandy little iPhone. And you can email nominations for any voices you feel we need to capture if you think of folks out there that we want to make sure we don't miss. Things that we can help you with: getting help with setting up the app and answering questions. And the email address is below and is also in the chat. And we are going to have breakout rooms. We mentioned that. We are going to have 3 different breakout rooms. One, Susan is going to work with photo questions and UNH archive questions. One, I'll be working with StoryCorps questions. And one is Fiona and Liv are going to be working with the questions for setting up the app and getting yourself an account on StoryCorps. And actually, Liv may be bouncing back and forth between my room and Fiona's. I'm not sure. Here we go. We're going to go on to the final piece here, the Creativity Archive. So this is a collection that we've started, and you are invited to be part of the Pinewoods Creativity Archive. Pinewoods draws creative people, and so many of us are musicians and dancers, but what's completely fascinating is the number of people who come to camp who are also a multitude of other art forms: photographers, poets, sculptors, fiction. But you will also see, in addition to this long list here, many different art forms we didn't even mention here, and you'll see some of that in the slides that are ahead. And if you don't think you're a creative person, we would love to sort of poke you a little bit to try and explore your untapped artists. See if maybe the idea of thinking about Pinewoods and what it means to you might encourage you to think of something you could create. So for example, we have fairy houses on the list because fairy house building is, of course, an art form. So the pieces that we're doing in the Creativity Archive, we were kind of using a phrasing that they were either made for Pinewoods, about Pinewoods, or at Pinewoods. And so do some deep thinking, and we hope you'll join us. We don't really know yet exactly what the uses of these things are going to be. We're very focused right now on the collecting end of it. But we have in mind that we might be able to be sharing things out on social media, sharing them out in Pinewoods correspondences, maybe even eventually having an online exhibit or something down the road. Okay, so these are pieces that either were already donated over the summer, or in some cases we're working on having them donated. An example of one that we're working on having donated is on the left. That's a dry point print by Channing Lefebvre. That's my first camp when I came to Pinewoods in the summer of 2016, my first cabin. And he gave me that at the end of the camp week. So I'm in touch with him right now, and we're working to get him to submit that into the collection. Here's a great way of seeing the differences across camp weeks. So this is 3 different interpretations of our handy-dandy little wooden sheds and cabins from 3 different folks. So you can see how you sort of start to learn more about the ways that people experience camp. These are watercolors submitted by Marty Wagner, a camper. These are, well, on the left is another one we're working on, a watercolor, as of yet unknown artist, and that was shown to us by Martin and Nancy Barber. A collage by Warren Anderson, who is interim Pinewoods executive director, that hangs in the Pinewoods office. There are a lot of things in writing, poems and stories, and we are both collecting and working on collecting those. On the left, you see a bowl that Martin Barber made from fallen wood at Pinewoods, and it's a great a way to look at a reminder that what we are collecting is actually digital images of your artwork and not your actual artwork. So please don't ship us a bowl, as much as we would love to have one. Take a picture, scan it if it's a paper document. And here you can see a bunch of different things made by, if you look across the community, you also see on this slide, there's staff, there's volunteer, there's board, and of course you saw campers in earlier. This is a waltz that was written for Daniel Drucker and Ariel Weinberg's 10th anniversary. So this is a document that was submitted. This is another document that was submitted, the sheet music for Armin Ehrman's When We Meet. And in his form that he filled out, which we'll get to, he said, I wrote this right after Harmony Week 2021, the only fully unmasked camp week I attended that year. It was like being in the calm of the eye of the storm for the beautiful and too brief moment. So after Armin submitted this, I thought, wouldn't it be fun when we're having this presentation if we could also hear it?
We will meet in the eye of the storm. We will meet in the eye of the storm. Between the dawn and the end, we will meet there again. Oh, my friends, when we meet in the eye of the storm.
So Armin sent that recording in after I asked if he would mind letting us hear the song. But the neat thing about archiving is now we have the sheet music and we also have an audio recording attached to it. And if Armin ever records it, in a recording studio with music playing on instruments, that he could also submit that. And then this particular item would show up in the archive 3 different ways. Archivists love that. Researchers love that. So think also about how you might do something like that. So here's another way that we can learn about each other across camp weeks. For folks who go to Scottish dance weeks, they've known for about 50 years that there's this thing called the Pinewoods Reel. For those of us who don't go to Scottish dance weeks, we may have never heard of such a thing, or we may have heard that it existed. I'm going to play just a tiny bit of this so you get a chance to hear it. So if that doesn't make you want to come to a Scottish week, I don't know what will. I'm so excited about trying one. Okay, a few last items. This is Kim Crespi, the Pinewoods accounts manager, made cookies. Those are shortbread cookies, iced. You can see even the Pinewoods logo on them. So super creative. And even if you think you can't make art, there you go. You can make cookies. This is a print on fabric, a photograph, just different items that you can see how broad the range is of what people submitted. So these are my 2 personal favorites at the moment. On the left, we have things that don't go in stock. This is a sign that hangs in the kitchen. It was made by Chris Bracken, who was on the kitchen crew in the summer of 2015. And a little bit of kitchen humor there. You can see things that don't go in stock include, toilet paper or pants or socks. But it's also a really great indication of archiving and why we archive. There was also a sign called Things That Do Go in Stock, and that one was destroyed in a kitchen water incident. And so we're still looking to see if anyone has a photograph of the other one so that we can add it to the archive. But here's a way of putting something in an archive to put it in place for posterity. On the right, we have tattoos on Julia Rubin Smith. She said it was done in Brooklyn by a tattoo artist, and the top and bottom images are from photos of Long Pond, and the middle one is one of the main paths. So there is a way that you can take Pinewoods with you all the way onto your skin all year round. All right, these are the forms you would see if you click the Pinewoods website link that Susan showed you. You put in your name and you check what format it's in, and you write a description and you upload your artwork in. It's a pretty easy form. You can also ask us about the Google Forms in the breakout rooms. And things you can do: submit your artwork or reach out to folks you know at camp who are artists and see if you can talk them into submitting theirs. I want to thank everybody so much. Please help us grow this archive. Join us by recording, submitting, being in touch, and we hope to see you around the archive building and around camp this coming summer. Chris, back to you.
Thank you so much, Joe and Susan and Liv and Fiona. Thank you so much. That was fabulous. We are going to open up for Q&A in just a moment, and you can ask questions one of two ways. 1 second, Susan. And so you'll be able to use your hand to ask a question, or you can put a question in the chat. So before we get to Q&As, we are just going to announce our next Zooms that are coming up, and then Susan has an announcement about an archive Zoom that she's also doing. So in 1 month, in March 24th, our next Zoom is creating inclusive queer-centered events at Pinewoods, and you'll hear about how we have expanded into the pre-season, and we can continue to grow the sessions that we have. And we have queer tango and hopefully lavender country and folk dancers who will also be co-presenting there. So Beth is going to drop the registration link. And then April 28th, we're really excited to be hosting the Wampanoag Nation singers and dancers. We have been working on partnering with them for almost 2 years, and it's finally coming to fruition, thanks in part to a grant from the Mass Cultural Council, the local cultural councils, and now there are the tribal cultural councils. And so that is being supported by them. And so that is on April 28th. Also, just remember that our Zoom series are posted onto our YouTube channel. They're usually up about a week after the presentation. So Beth will be working on that, and Beth will drop the link to our YouTube channel. And for those of you who registered tonight, there is a lot of chat links in the chat room. We will send you those links so that you have it all. And with that, we're going to open it up for Q&A. And oh, actually, do you want to quickly talk about the breakout rooms, or you want to talk about that after the Q&A?
Either way.
So there'll be three. If you want to stay after the Q&A, you'll be able to go into the breakout rooms. You'll be able to self-select which rooms they are. And Joe, can you remind us again what those topics are?
Yep. So Susan's room is going to be if you have questions about UNH or if you have questions about the snapshots in time photo collecting. My room is going to be if you have questions about StoryCorps story recording or about the Creativity Archive. I think I'll be room number 2. And Fiona is going to be room number 3. She's going to be working more on the technical end of it if you're trying to download the app or log in while you're here with us to make sure that you can get that. And Liv, I'm not sure which room Liv is going to bounce into, but maybe both for a little while.
Can I just add one announcement before we head to breakout
Sorry,
room?
I said that you were going to announce.
Real quick, that's okay. We're focused on archives around Pinewoods Camp tonight, but CDSS has also been doing a lot of work around archives. And a week from tonight, I'm going to be co-hosting a CDSS webinar where we're going to be unveiling a set of online resources that are intended for folk organizations who want to preserve their own history. We kind of started with a focus on Morris teams. A lot of Morris teams are reaching their 40th and 50th anniversaries. And we designed some materials as we worked to archive the Marlborough Ale. And we're now sharing resources through CDSS for organizations that want to do that. If you're interested in joining us to learn about that, it's a week from tonight. Go to cdss.org and you can find out how to sign up for that. Okay, thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you, Susan. Sorry about that.
All
right. So I think we're going to open it up for questions. Again, you can ask questions through the chat and we'll ask them for you, or you can just raise your hand and go that route.
C. Dragon has a question.
Yeah, I was just curious about where the last sort of set of the creative works and things like that was being archived since so much of it was multimedia. Is that eventually getting to UNH as well, or where does that live?
So great question. We're working with UNH right now to determine, since it's coming in as a digitized collection, the material digitized and partially with some of the data already, we're hoping that they're going to take it. So we're working with them on that. It will definitely be held at Pinewoods since it's also just digital and not requiring physical space. But great question. And when we do know, we will be letting folks know out there. Thanks, Dragan. Does anybody else have any questions that they would like to ask? Can look on all these screens for hands. And if not, I guess we could shift into breakout rooms, unless Chris, do you want to do anything else? Or Beth, do you want to do anything else before we go into phase 2 here?
Go ahead, Beth.
I was just gonna say when we're settled before we go into break rooms, we'll pause recording.
That's exactly what I was going to say. And thank you, Beth, for organizing all those links. That's a lot to keep track of. So thank you again. And we are going to open all the rooms. And for those of you who are in New England, especially Southern New England, I hope you're nice and warm and that you are dug out. So thank you again, everyone, and we will see you in March at the next Zoom.